What did he say?
He's going to destroy the world. Can it not be averted?
Man corrupted this world, filled it with violence. So we must be destroyed.
The great flood is coming. We build a vessel to hold the innocent.
Mama! What? Em!
What do you want?
Did you really think you could protect yourself from me in that?
It's not protection from you.
I had men at my back. You stand alone and defy me?
I'm not alone. When they come, there will be desperate, there will be many.
Snakes are coming too?
All the crawls, all the slithers.
Remember, Noah, he chose you for a reason.
Take the ark!
Choice was in your hands, Noah.
Begins.
We're gonna have a nice little cruise.
Hey, how's y'all doing? This is Mr. Blows Your Mind coming with another thought-provoking topic. And today's topic has been in the news. They've been showing the previews to it. And I'm wondering if a lot of our people are actually noticing what is being depicted, or a lot of us are just kind of shying it off and acting as if it has no relevancy to us whatsoever. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Noah Arks movie that's about to be played. I think it's coming out on March 28th, 2014, right? And in this movie, you have Russell Crowe. He'll be playing Noah. You have Jennifer Connelly, who will be playing Naamah. You'll have Anthony Hopkins as Methuselah. You have Logan Lerman, which is going to be Ham. Now, that should be interesting. You got Douglas Booth, who will be playing Shem. You got Leo McHugh Carroll, who is playing Japheth. And, you know, you're probably saying, well, this isn't any different than any other, you know, biblical movie that's been portrayed. Well, we have to look at it in this aspect. We have to look at the fact that when you go through this chronology of history of these biblical movies, a lot of the stuff was made at a particular time where, let's say, and put it in this form of fashion. Well, our voice and our opinion about a lot of stuff wasn't as strong. I mean, we had come out of the 60s and doing the civil rights, and then we got stagnated after the assassinations of those people between Martin and Malcolm, Mega Everest, and so on. And after people sold out and took those city jobs, we were stagnated into a particular, mindset, and as a people of the communities. And so when I see a movie being depicted in this biblical aspect, I want those who will hear me that are religious, because again, I'm not saying that I don't have belief. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is we have to look at the fact that when somebody is portraying something or trying to recreate something that's supposed to be a factual historical event, right? We have a nonchalant attitude. We are considered to be onlookers, silent onlookers. We see things that should be voiced about or be in opposition to, and we just kind of just say, well, if I don't say something, it'll just go away. And that's been the mindset of our people for over 40, 45, 46 years now, after the civil rights movement had been basically snapped. So when I've seen the story about how in the Muslim nations, now let's make this clear, those who hear me, I'm not against the Nation of Islam or the Muslims or Arab people in particular. I think that based on what I'm about to read to you and then how I'm going to dissertate in this video, this is something that we need to look at, and let's say that let's see the dichotomy between the two nations of people, the one who are stating there's nothing wrong with it versus the people who are saying that there's something wrong with it. And if you have any comments or anything, please go ahead and put your comment down, and I'll try to reply to anything that's being said. Now, this movie of Noah, again, that's going to be out in March 28th of 2014, is by this producer named Darren Aronofsky. Okay? And what happened is that they're banning in this movie is being banned in the Muslim countries, including Africa, right? And what they're depicting is that they're saying that the reason for them banning this particular movie is for the contravening of Islamic rules of depiction of a prophet. Now, people can hear my words, and sometimes I think that because of the public schooling that most of us had, that if you understand what I mean when I tell you that sometimes we hear words and we assume that we understand when somebody is speaking, right? We hear the words and we have a general understanding as to the things that's being said, but a lot of times we don't go into the deeper understandings of words because, again, when we were in grade school, every week, what was some of the criterion for you to pass in your so-called spelling, right? We took a test in spelling. Right? So you learn how to spell the word, but then you don't understand all the meanings because there's different facets to words. And so what ended up happening is you can spell a word, but then you don't understand when somebody is using a particular word, there may be a different, facet of the meaning that they may be implying. So that's for you to have the understanding to try to figure it out. So in the aspect of what they're saying about this contravening is just basically that means they're saying that to violate, right? To infringe, to transgress, right? So why are they using this word contravening of the prophet? And so in retaliation towards them saying that, they saying, well, this Darren Aronofsky is stating that, well, this is a fantasy epic. Now, again, you have to understand words. When you say the word fantasy, a lot of people have the ideology of in their minds of what fantasy means. But fantasy actually means the imagination, right? The imagination forming of a grotesque image. Of a grotesque image is what they are saying, right? And so a grotesque image, right? think about that, grotesque. That's something that is very hideous or ugly, right? And so they're saying that the way that a movie that can be depicted supposedly of this biblical aspect, the interpretation is by the producer who is going to make this film, and it can contradict the stature of the prophet and the messengers. Now, why would they be saying something like that? Why are they talking about this, you know, well, we won't say we'll say we're misinterpreting by the producer to contradict the stature of the messenger or the prophet. Well, this is why I'm going to make this video, because a lot of people just tend to think that we all live in this multicultural dynamic and that everything is happy, glorious, and that, you know, the post-slave or post-racial mixture because of so-called president has somehow vanished all the ills of what done had happened. And when I'm talking, I'm not just talking just in America in general. I'm talking about the colored nations in particular. And so the Arabs are stating, again, let me say this clear. I'm not for or nor am I against. But what I am doing is I am speaking based on the simple fact that there's something that needs to be looked upon. And I know we have a lot of my brothers and sisters, especially a lot of you who, you know, we grew up together and we came from one of the greatest little sections of the city that was on the map. And I'm actually going to do a video about that because, you know, there's something that happened that we probably never even thought about, and we kind of been misled on that. And I will never do anything to be disrespectful, but I would be doing stuff to just bring that truth about. So anyway, so this Darren Aronofsky is going to do this fantasy epic, which is he's going to make an imagination forming of a grotesque thing that is based in his mind. It's going to be depicted on how he sees things. And my issue is, let's see, according to the story that was written, the article that had been written, and it says this, that Darren Aronofsky, Noah's face is banned in Muslim countries. The biblical epic has already fallen foul of censors in Qatar, Bahrain, and in the UAE, directly depicting Allah's messenger, Noah. Now, it says Darren Aronofsky, Noah could be banned across large swath of the Middle East and part of North Africa for contravening Islamic rule of the depiction of the prophet, according to the Hollywood Reporters. The fantasy epic, which stars Russell Crowe as the biblical patriarch, has already been refused or has been refused a license by a censor in Qatar, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. Egypt could well follow suit, with Jordan and Kuwait also expected to outlaw the film on religious grounds. Al-Hazar renewed its rejections to the screening of any productions that characterizes Allah's prophets and messengers and the companions of the prophet, which is Muhammad. Said one Egypt leader, Sunni Muslim, institutes a statement. Therefore, Al-Ahar announces the prohibition of the coming film about Allah's messenger, Noah, peace be upon him. The institute, which is influential but does not have the final say on censorship, added that the movie contradicts the stature of the prophet and messenger and antagonizes the faith or the faithful. Noah is currently due to open in Egypt on 26th of March, 2 days ahead of its U.S. debut, rather. The film has already caused controversy amid reports that U.S. fundamentalist Christian groups were dismayed at Aronofsky's decision to produce a loose adaptation of the Bible story rather than a literal retelling. Studio Paramount, which is desperate to court religious filmgoers, last week issued a statement making clear that the movie is not intended as a direct translation. Aronofsky famously gave up final cuts on Noah in return of a $160 million budget, but he nevertheless appeared to have convinced executives to show his version of the film in the cinemas, rather than the reported half a dozen alternative cuts put all together by the studio in an attempt to keep churchgoers happy. The controversy is all about the unknown and about the fear of people trying to explore the Bible story. Aronofsky told Variety this week, will all disappear as soon as people start seeing the film. Director Black Swan and the wrestler hinted he was likely to return to smaller, more intimate movies after the travails he has faced bringing Noah to cinema. I love big movies and small movies and television, said the filmmaker. I love storytelling, but I'm not going to make another 9-figure budget film tomorrow. I need a break. Now, see, let's look at this and let's break this down. Now, in this story, you just heard you heard two sides of the coin. You heard the version of so-called the Islamic side was saying, based on the fact that the depiction of using Allah's messenger Noah. And here is the Aronofsky who is saying, well, I'm just a storyteller, a producer who's making this. Now, it's a one-time thing, and once you see it, then maybe you won't be so, against it. See, it's like, well, don't show me one card, when we playing poker. You show me both to see if you bluffing or not, right? So he don't want to show you anything, no telltales, right? And so they say, well, when it come out, then you can have your reaction then. Well, this is the problem. This is really what the problem is. The problem is this. Now, I know a lot of you read your Bible. A lot of you are deep into the Bible. And there's a problem. Okay? Now, when I read those names of the actors and actresses who are going to play the Noah story, right then tells you that there's going to be an issue here, and this is what the Arabs are saying. They're saying, how is it possible? And you have to ask yourself. You got to ask yourself. I know a lot of you sit here and you just go along to get along because you don't want to ruffle the feather. You don't want to, ripple the tide. But how can somebody create a biblical story not depicting it in its original state? Because again, the people who have been wielding the power, controlling everything, are the ones who've been telling everything. So what am I saying here? All right, let's get into it. So when we think about in the biblical aspect, right? Because the name of this video is going to be called Noah and No Negroes in the Ark. I'm going to say that again. Noah and no Negroes in the Ark. Now, why am I saying that? And some of you may say, blasphemous. I know he's against the Bible. Oh my God, turn this junk off. Look, you too zealous and you too sensitive. See, I'm not saying anything about the creator at all. What I'm talking about is the depiction of this movie. And why the depiction of this movie is important, because you have offspring, you have grandchildren, you have great-grandchildren, some of you. You understand what I'm saying? And so when you understand, when you watching 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 32 and all this stuff and these hundreds of channels on cable, what is that called? That's called programs. What does program mean? Basically, the computer that you're on right now, it takes programs to make it operate and function, right? So television programs are that's what they do. They're programming you. And the thing is, who is controlling the program and what is the agenda? I'm going to say that again. Okay? When you have, or when you watching TV, it is called programs. And the point you have to look at the fact is, when you're watching TV, even though it's as innocent as it may appear to yourself, right? But you got to ask yourself, whose agenda and what are they trying to program you with? Because when you break the word down in entertainment, do you know that it means a diversion? So you're being diverted when you're watching this entertainment. And what are they diverting you from? Okay? You keep listening to my stuff and you're going to learn. See, we ain't getting none of this stuff. You know, public schools, private schools, colleges, this ain't part of the curriculum, y'all. You know that. This ain't part of the talk. This is actually taboo. A lot of you are probably going to be turned off just by hearing me. But this is what I do. Now, you do what you do, but this is what I do. So anyway, if you understand in the Bible aspect that when you look at in the Bible story, and then after you have what happened with Cain and Abel, and then Cain was sent out of the garden, right? And then I think if you look in Genesis 3 and 3:15, it's going to talk about a new seed, right? A promised seed, one that was going to, right? There was a new and a promised seed. So that means there was another one, which was Seth. You have Cain's seed and you have Seth's seed. Now, let me show you something. Why right off the bat, if you ain't paying no attention or haven't paid attention to this movie, I'm going to show you something that you need to be looking at. Now, right there, I just told you something. When there's Seth's seed versus Cain's seed, these are going to be the seeds that's going to now create after what happened supposedly according to the mythological story of the Bible. And so you have the genealogy of Cain and you have the genealogy of Seth, right? And so the way that that's been depicted in the Bible, somehow the Cain seed disappears. You assume that that seed got washed away and it went away with the flood, right? And so when they talk about Noah, right, you heard me say that Anthony Hopkins is going to play Methuselah. Well, who was Methuselah's father? Who was Methuselah's father? See, they're going to show you, they got Adam and Eve, they're going to be playing in the roles, right? They got Noah, they got Naamah, they got Methuselah, they got Ham, Shem, Japheth, right? They got all these people, but there's somebody who they missing. Because they talk about Noah. They talk about Noah as if like Noah is right next to Adam. No. Who was it that was 7 generations from Adam? That'd be Enoch. And if Enoch is 7 generations from Adam, which means he was the seed that was coming out of whom? See, this is where this mixer aspect is coming from. Because Cain also produces the Enoch, because when he went into the land of fugitiveness, what was the name of his son? Enoch. So then here's another Enoch, and this is the lineage that this Enoch is coming out of, is going to be birthing the promised seeds. And so, if that be the case, then Noah is a progeny of the lineage through Enoch. And it is known that Enoch was an Ethiopian. I'm going to say that again. If Noah is a progeny of the lineage from Enoch, and Enoch was an Ethiopian, how can you have these people depicting? Do you understand? How can you have a Russell Crowe, a Jennifer Connelly, a Anthony Hopkins, a Logan Lehman, a Douglas Booth, and a Leo McHugh Carroll playing the roles of people of color? See, this stuff like this is what make people allow stuff to just go right past and we don't say nothing. See, everything is being stolen from you right in front of your face, and you do what? You say nothing. And the only thing you got to say, you know what y'all saying? Put it in. Put in trust in. Let me tell you something. The Creator created you, and the Creator works through you. If you stand still and you do nothing, then how the Creator is going to work through you if you do nothing? I'm going to say that again. The Creator works through your works to manifest His glory. But if you do nothing, how is it possible? He's the one who taught you turn the other cheek. Who told you if he slap you on this one, give him the other one. Don't resist. Who told you that? Who might have put that there? And see, they act as if like, people act as if like God's people have to be people who have to be timid, soft, no backbone. But you read in that Bible, well, there was a lot of fighting going on in there. There was a lot of war. They even took out the war of wars that was in there. Because you're not supposed to be a people who have a backbone, who will stand up and who will fight. Right? So, here's a movie being depicted. And the only way, and you got to ask yourself, there's no way if you are having any inkling of any kind of mind or any kind of consciousness that it don't come across your mind to say, well, damn, if Noah and these people were in the ark, and according, when you look in the Bible, when you start looking at that, they're talking about in Genesis, like, I think it's like Genesis, let's see, I got one book here, but I know it's like, first, so you got 26 is when it created, 24 is when it talks about the beast, right? I think it's 324, 325, or 126. Genesis 126 is that. So 124 is where the beast, right? And so you got the beast, and then you have the creation of man and woman, right? And so if Adam and Eve are the original man and woman on the planet, and through them they create, and then you have the offsprings, and then you have Noah and them. And then through Noah's family only, these are the only people who have been saved on the planet. Then, if they were all white people, then how did you get here? I'm going to say that again. If all white people were on the ark, then the only way they can depict you to be how you got here is either 1, you were a beast, 2, then you have to go with Genesis 9, chapter 9, verse 25 through 27, the cursed. This is why they're sitting there saying, this is contravening. This is blasphemous. This is a indirect translation. Because how can you portray yourself in a story that you aren't the original people? Because let me put it to you like this. We've seen a black person turn white, but you've never seen a white person turn black. So that means that the mutation happens in a reverse order, from black shades down to white, but you cannot graft up from white to black. This is not race talk, y'all. This is truth. And this is this kind of stuff that is going to be portrayed out here. These are the kind of movies that they're putting out there. It's not so much of you. You're a little older now. You know a little bit better from right and wrong. But what about your children and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren? Is people putting out stuff here to reprogram your children to put them back in this kind of cage mindset of white supremacy? Is that what is happening? Or have y'all gotten so graham crackerish that you don't think like that? You done got graham crackerish. So, I've read where in about the 1800s there was a dude that talked about this named Ariel, and it's a book called God's Nomenclature. What is the Negro? A beast in God's nomenclature? A beast. Because they break down the fact, they say, well, Ham, that was something that they created to give them the so-called, it gave them the foundation to have a good mindset of why they was enslaving us, right? This is what they say, but now they trying to say, well, that was just, it never happened. Abraham, there was no curse, because the Bible now doesn't say that. So then how can you create a movie of Noah? How could they create a movie of Moses? How could they create the movie of Jesus? And yet they still portrayed the European as the original people. Anybody feeling what I'm saying? How can you create yourself to be the original man when you were not the original person? And so the Arabs have a legitimate, in my eyes, they have a legitimate fight. But let me show you something. For some of you who may hear this and say, oh, you on that race stuff. Let me show you how much that the people who claim to be like, I'm not racist. I have black friends. Let me show you when I read this story, right? And the stuff that was on the blog. Let me see if I can get that up here. Let's see. No, that's not it. Let me pull this up right quick. That should have been in pictures. Let's see. Here we go. Let me pull this up here. Alright, so I have some, and I'll actually probably show this in the video to let you see that I didn't make none of this stuff up. Now, here's one that came out. It says, Islam, the kinder, gentler, accepting religion. Yeah, on what planet? Now, just in that, what I just said was a little sarcastic, right? Islam, the kinder, gentler, accepting religion. Yeah, on what planet? And 43 people like that. 43 people like what that had said. 46 people had it down. Now, Islam, the kinder, gentler, accepting religion. Yeah, on what planet? Now, isn't that ironic? Now, for a lot of you, you better get out of here now. You better turn it off, because I'm about to say something about Christianity that you don't really want to hear, because you don't want the truth. You don't want the truth. You want to go along, get along, and believe in everything just because, well, Mama wouldn't give me a snake to eat, would she? Mama wouldn't give me a snake. Daddy wouldn't give me a snake. But if Mama and Daddy didn't know it was a snake, that don't necessarily mean that they gave it to you voluntarily. They only went what they was given. You feel what I'm saying? It became generationally. And so it's not saying that a creator don't exist. It's just a simple fact that maybe somebody gave you something to what? Gave you something to do what? So anyway, it says Islam is a kind of gentler, accepting religion. On what planet? As if, like, if you understand the history of Christianity. In this sign we shall conquer, and went around the world, and they call it the white man's burden. That it is his right and duty to raise up and to do and teach the black people or the color people of the world. That was what he wrote. You don't believe me? Go look it up. So it said much kinder and gentler. I mean, when we look at the diaspora, when we look at slavery, your Judaism and your Christians are the one who really facilitated that. Oh, you didn't know that. And you ain't too knowledgeable of that. Right? So Islam a kind of gentler, accepting religion. Yeah. If you take this, if you go back far enough in this country, you'll realize that black people weren't even allowed in the churches. I mean, Martin Luther King told you, he said the most racial time in the American society is on Sunday mornings, because black people going to black people church and white people going to white people church. But yet everybody reading the Bible talking about love and God and all this stuff, but yet even going to church, you're not even so integrated. So the next comment says, so what? They don't like anything. I'm sure it's a great movie without their approval. Just another excuse for them to go on beheading sprees. See? They don't like anything. I'm sure it's a great movie. You haven't even seen the movie, but you know it's a great movie. Why? Because it's depicting something. See what white supremacy can do? White supremacy, you just know it's good because it's going to be your people in it. So I don't even have to see, but I can tell you it's great because I know it's Noah. I know it's Noah, and Noah is white, just like I'm white, so it has to be great because we're white. And then it goes on and says, well, we don't need their approval because it's just going to give them the excuse to just go on beheading spree. Oh, boy. See, I know a lot of you not going to like this because a lot of y'all went into that military, right? A lot of you are patriotic because you are militaristic, right? You went in and you served your country protecting it against whom? Whom was you protecting it against? Whom are you protecting it against? Who was you doing the dirty work for? Whom was you stealing and plundering and killing for? Beheading spree? Every country has its own law and how they deal according to law. Well, what about you executing so many brothers that a lot of them was innocent? But that ain't talked about, and that's not equated even looked upon, right? That's separation of church and state. So you can't bind those two together. They got 344 people like that comment out of 32 people said they didn't. See? What is that telling you? Next comment says, oh, it offends Islam? Wow, wow, wow. Are we bound by what they think? This is the United States. Definitely watching it. Are you hearing the arrogantness in that? Oh, it defends? Oh, it offends Islam? Cry babies. Are we bound what they think? Are we bound? And see, who are you bound to? See, this is the arrogantness in the arrogantness in people to act like they are not there. No one is above them. They don't have to listen to anything. What we do is what we do. See, this is why we got all this confusion going on in this land, don't we? Got all this confusion going on. And this is the United States, definitely watching it with pride and valor. Yeah. You can get a lot from the mindset of people on a blog. Next comment says, a 2012 amateur YouTube video deriding Muhammad produced in California stoked protests throughout the region and may have contributed to a deadly militant raid in Libya which killed the U.S. ambassador and 3 other American staff. How much longer is the left-wing media going to promulgate this lie? Way to go, AOL. You just like the rest of them. Chris Matthews and Ed Schultz would be so proud. He got 347 people to like that, 94 people didn't like that. See, media propaganda, selling you things, right? Selling you things and twisting the story, and you accept it because you don't know how to really read or really to interpret, right? So you go along to get along. Next was, I'm sure Paramount couldn't care less. Well, of course. Well, let's look at it this way. Are you familiar with the history of Paramount? Do you know who established Paramount? And the same people who are depicting the same people who are put in the Aronofskys, and the same people who are the Connollys and Sephardic and Ashkenaz, if that rings a bell to anybody. Does that ring a bell? Probably don't ring a bell to a lot of people. You know Christopher Columbus is also Jewish? Did y'all know that? Do you know who brought you here to America? You'll be surprised to find out who really brought you here to America. Yeah, you know they may have looked a certain way, but they were also a certain so-called race of people, right? If that's even really true, because I don't believe that's to be true either. All right, so let me see if I pull up the next one. And the next one is, it says, on August 4, 2013, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, addressed the Duma, Russian parliament and gave a speech about the tension with minorities in Russia. And Russia lived like Russians. Any minorities from anywhere, if it wants to live in Russia, to work and eat in Russia, should speak Russian and should respect the Russian law. If they prefer Sharia law and live the life of Muslim, then we advise them to go on to those places where that's the state law. Russia does not need Muslim minorities. Minorities need Russia. And we will not grant special privileges or try to change our laws to fit their desires, no matter how loud they yell discrimination. We will not tolerate disrespect of our Russian culture. We had better learn from the suicides of, and then it continues on. Huh? Did you hear that patriotism? Huh? Did you hear that I am? We are the rule. We are. You're going to accept it. We don't care. You accept what we tell you. Next. And he got 117 to 5. 117 people like that. You ain't, I'm not going to see not one where the majority are hating. It's more liking. It's telling us a lot of the mindset of the people. And you know who's saying this stuff. The silent jihad and Sharia laws continue its journey into America, and the citizens sleep. All I ever know, all I ever need to know about Muslim, I learned in 9/11, Fort Hood, Benghazi, Boston Marathon Massacre, religion of peace, my ass. You see how he put everything that had happened on the Muslims. In 9/11, Muslims did it. In Benghazi, Muslims did it. In the Boston Marathon, they did it. Religion of peace, my ass, the Muslims, huh? See, it's hard to look in the mirror because they don't teach that history here. In order for you to know that history, that's why you got to have a PhD. You got to have your personal history developed. Not the piece of paper you get after you done paid all that money and finally you get that like a vending machine and extract it and you get your diploma and you still end up not knowing anything. The only way you're going to learn about what you're going to know is through your own personal history developed. Other than that, you'll be dumbfounded. You'll be saying stuff like this person. But they're speaking not from the aspect of history. They're speaking of pride, supremacy, white supremacy pride that we are, because we are Christian. Because when you understand to take Christianity back into its history, you realize that what? Christianity, right, was about white folks. Christianity had nothing to do with black people. When they told you at a particular time going back in this country, said, what's your Christian name, boy? Your white name. Don't a lot of us guess what those names come from? Huh? Your Christian name. Next. Hate, and more hatred from Islam. When will it ever end? Before a mosque is built in your community, get a permit from Saudi Arabia, starting that they will permit a Christian church in their soil. Well, let's put it to you like this. I don't think that they, as Muslims, have an open door policy talking about multiculturalism. I don't think they have that there. But this place calls itself the melting pot, and even though that is a lie, and if you understand what they're really talking about, because you got to know history, because you didn't learn this in school. You remember the stuff you teach in school, you didn't even want to hear that because we were talking about you, and you became to the point that you didn't want to hear about how bad you was being treated. So you didn't want to hear that stuff, and they ain't telling you this stuff that I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? And so if you don't understand the history, of course you'll say that. But you don't know Christian history. Who you think was persecuting and doing all this killing, and who was all this colonizing? Who you think that was? And when you talk about the detriment of 100 million slaves on the diaspora, if it was that many, a lot of publications that I've read, they always talk about there was about 100 million, but they said 1 out of 10 could only make it. And so that's the mindset that they got. So another one says, are you expecting something different from Muslims? Are you expecting something different? Let me tell you another thing too. You know why a lot of Christians, these people don't like Muslims? Let me tell you, and a lot of brothers, when you become Muslims, you know what it is that you really saying? It's not so much that you black and that you're a Muslim. A lot of them don't even know the history. Do you know the one aspect when you talk about Alexander and them and when they were doing all this conquering? They never did conquer them. But you got to remember the Muslims, the Moors, went into Europe and they ruled for 714 years. And they went up there and changed that color up until basically when you see somebody Italian and all that and these so-called Portuguese and all that, that's where that's coming from. That's where all that's where all that black blood was more prevalent in them because of that. And Europe is divided upon the Central Eastern, the Central Eastern, right? Because they know that was more where the prominent was at. And talking about Russia, well, if you understand who the Basques are, see, there's a white Russia too. You remember in 48 Hours when Eddie Murphy was in the bar and he went to the bar and said, "Let me have a black Russian," and he started laughing. But see, a lot of people don't understand what that means. Russians originally were. See, see, we always want to stigmatize and put ourselves only in one landmass or continent. And we are the world. We was everywhere. You need to get into your personal history. So anyway, I can keep going on with some of these blogs, but that's just to show you just some of the mindset. And so again, what I'm saying is, in the Noah's movie, the only way they can depict you is being either a beast or a curse. So that means there's no black people on the ark. And if you got no black people on the ark, then guess what? You have to ask yourself, how'd you get here? See, and where's the Tyler Perry version? Where's the Spike Lee version? Where's these so-called directors and stuff who got this so-called power? But see, I know history. And I know why they can't depict these type of movies. Because, again, there's an association that has to be approved about a lot of things. You can't just make something just because you decide that that's what you want to do. Don't work like that. Well, anyway, I just wanted to bring a little bit to light on this. And for y'all who won't go out there and you spend your money to watch movies like that and understand that the undermining of a lot of this stuff is just to rebrand the world back into a mindset that they had you because of us being in the so-called new age and the frequency and energy that is being prevalent now, and a lot of people are starting to delve into information and trying to seek and dig for that buried knowledge. We're starting to learn and come out of the chains of them, you know, those Willie Lynch. Remember that? Going back to 1712. When he sat on the James Bank River, the James Bank, the river bank of James River, when he's talked about how to continue to keep your slaves in a perpetual state for 300 years, and that was in 1712. Well, 300 plus 1712 will get you to 2012. So they had to come and try to rebrand you because a lot of us are getting out of that, you know, that mind state. We're starting to wake up. And so I'm just bringing to awareness that a movie like this can do a lot of detriment to young ones if we're not sitting and we're not telling and teaching what the true history is. Well, this is Mr. Blows Your Mind coming with another thought-provoking topic. I ain't telling you what you heard. I'm telling you what I know.